As we begin this program of The People Speak Live, an evening of dramatic readings and songs of dissenters, rebels, visionaries, and prophets of the past and the present, I am pleased to be able to pay tribute to one of the most influential men who has made America the free land that it is today. When we look back on history, there are tipping points, moments that changed everything. The time surrounding the Civil War was one of these moments. The northern states were pushing harder for abolition of slavery, while the southern states were becoming more and more reliant on the use of slaves. Tension was building, and something had to change. Frederick Douglass was paramount in tipping the balance and making the United States a truly free nation. Douglass was born a slave and endured countless beatings and sorrow, but in a way, he was fortunate. His master's wife began to teach him to read and write, along with her son. However, these teachings did not last very long. His master learned of this and immediately reprimanded his wife. He told his wife that as you teach a slave to read, you also teach him about freedom, and he's going to want to get free. When Douglass heard his master state these words, he stated this was his first decidedly anti-slavery lecture, and his desire to learn to read and to become free burned even deeper within him. And apparently, his master was right. At the age of 20, he forged his own papers, and he ran away to become free. Frederick quickly became a moving orator and a literary genius. In fact, he was the first Black to own his own printing establishment. He also wrote autobiographies describing his experiences as a slave, and eloquently condemned not only slavery, but racism as well. These autobiographies were bestsellers and were read all throughout the United States. Throughout these mediums, he challenged racist views held by slave owners and non-slave owners alike. It proved both his and his race's intellectual competence, thus challenging the commonly accepted views of Blacks' natural inferiority. Both during and after the Civil War, Douglass fought for American rights for African Americans and placement in society. He conversed with President Lincoln and discussed the roles that African Americans could play in the Civil War. He was under the opinion that the service in the military for African Americans was necessary for these men to be able to obtain citizenship and suffrage. Douglass eventually was able to convince President Lincoln to create 2 regiments for Black men, and he also exhorted African American men to serve in these regiments by saying, "I urge you to fly to arms and smite with death the power that would bury the government and your liberty in the same hopeless grave." Because of Douglass, for the first time ever, Blacks and whites fought together for a truly free nation. Douglass's fight for freedom did not end there. During the Reconstruction, he continued speaking and writing and fighting, not just for freedom, but for equality. Douglass stated, "Let no man be kept from the ballot box because of his color." His journey to becoming someone who moved minds and hearts began as a slave, and ended with him not only being a famous orator, but also a social reformer and statesman. While this journey was filled with mockery, insult, and violent personal attack, he never wavered in his devotion to the abolitionist cause. So, of all the people we have highlighted tonight, why Frederick Douglass? First, he was one of the first minorities to be celebrated during his own lifetime. Second, he is the epitome of the American dream, going from rags to riches. And last but not least, Douglass spent his life in the pursuit of the heart of what it means to be an American. He spent his life in the pursuit of freedom.